I've got a few paint guns laying out here on my workbench. Most of these are these Central Pneumatic 20-ounce gravity feed spray guns sold by Harbor Freight. I bought 3 or 4 of them about 8 or 10 years ago in the stores when we were down south and went through the stores, and I think they were 15 to 20 bucks a piece. They just came up on sale here in June and they were $9.95 a piece, so I sent for 5 of them. I use these quite a bit on the repairs, painting parts and stuff on my airplanes and other equipment that I have around here. I'm not a professional painter, but I have used these quite a bit, so I thought I'd give a little product review and critique of these paint guns. I consider these a disposable gun, and the reason I consider them a disposable gun is because the seals in them won't hold up to the solvents that you use on an automotive style paint. You can't soak these in lacquer thinner to clean them. When you use them with epoxy or acrylic enamel, polyurethane paint, you have to clean them regularly, and I use lacquer thinner usually to clean them right away after I use them. But you just go through it and clean the gun and then put it aside, and even then they're only good for half a dozen to a dozen cleanings before the seals start going bad on them and they'll start leaking, and you really get poor performance out of them then. This one is one that I used for about a year, painted a whole bunch of different parts and stuff with it, and it finally gave up the ghost and I put it aside. I've been putting a new fabric cover on the fuselage and control surfaces of a Piper Super Cub. I just got to the point where I needed to spray the finish coats on them. The coats on them are vinyl that is suspended in solvents. That coating is pretty hard on spray guns. I had that Binks Model 62 gun there that I bought new, and it was a great gun. It sprayed a good pattern and worked real good for a while. A friend of mine borrowed it a few years ago to put these coatings on his airplane, and even though he cleaned it up, he didn't do a very good job cleaning it when he gave it back to me. And I've rebuilt it, put new seals in it, and cleaned it all out and everything else, and it's never worked right since. I can't get it to work right. So that's why I use these guns for that kind of stuff. This gun, I had it up on the shelf in the hangar for several years. Bought it the same time I did this one, and then this one was on the shelf too along with it. I dug these two out of the shelf. I cleaned this one up and I used it for the control surfaces. There are several coats that go on the control surfaces. I used it for all of those, and I figured when I was done with it, I would throw it away and get a new one out to use on the fuselage. It was about a week between the time that I did the control surfaces and the fuselage, and in that length of time, even though I cleaned this gun out, I figured that it wouldn't work very well afterwards. And that's the reason I ordered all these new ones. Well, when I got done with the control surfaces and got ready to paint the fuselage, I had these new guns, and looking at them, they were pretty clean. And these old guns, even though they're new and never been used, they're really dirty. They've got all that packing grease in them that's typical of a Harbor Freight tool inside of them. It took me about an hour and a half or so to clean this one out to get it ready to use. These, when I looked at them, the first one I pulled out was already pretty clean, so I thought I would use it. I washed it out with solvent. I looked down inside of it there to see, and I don't know whether that's going to show or not, but that passageway there that the paint goes down through, coming from the cup into the main chamber, was almost completely blocked off with some goop. And when I took the nose piece off and looked down inside that chamber from the front, the whole chamber was almost plugged up with goop. Well, that's whatever sealant that they use. This needle valve goes through here, and that's moves back and forth. That's what controls how much paint comes out through here in the spray, and that goes through a packing gland right in here, the nut that holds that in, and that's what that sealant was in that packing gland. And they just put so much sealant in there that it just squeezed out and blocks off almost all of the passageways. Well, I took a screwdriver, got down in there and cleaned that passageway all out, took the nozzle off there and got in there and cleaned that passageway out there, and then set that gun up to use it. I mixed up my paint and everything, got ready to go. Well, before I took the out to use and put the paint in the cup, I put some solvent in there took it out to set up, kind of give me a preliminary setup on my flows and stuff, to get my pattern set up, my flow, the air pressures and everything all set up in the gun. Well, when I did, I noticed this nut right here, this knob right here, is a valve, and that controls the amount of air pressure coming out through these holes in this cap. which makes the fan pattern. That control wouldn't work at all. It didn't change my fan pattern one bit. This knob right here, this is what controls how far in or out that needle goes to control what volume of fluid is going down through it. That wouldn't control fluid flow. And this down here controls the amount of air pressure that is going up through the gun, the volume of air that's going through the gun, and that didn't work. I'd thrown this gun away. I just threw it in the garbage can. I went and dug it out, cleaned it up, and checked it out, and it worked okay, and I used it for finishing that fuselage. Well, I had one more coat of a different style to put on everything, and this gun, the multiple cleanings that I did with MEK, even though I didn't let it soak in here, this cup got distorted from that. It wouldn't seal anymore, so paint would come out of this cup and flop down and get on things. And my spray pattern was starting to get distorted. I couldn't control it like I wanted anymore. So I decided to go ahead and clean up one of these other new guns and use it. When I went to check out these guns, not one of them worked properly. Every one of these, this nut was loose on there and air was flowing out of that. Air would flowing out around this nut here where this goes in there to seat. It's flowing out around here, and it's flowing out around that. So, and I couldn't tighten these up. I could have fixed them, I guess, taken them all apart and put sealant on them and got them fixed, but I didn't want to take the time to fool with them. The first one I did get to work. When I put the paint cup on there, paint leaked out down through the bottom and then leaked out around this nozzle and stuff, and I couldn't stop it from doing that. I finally found one of them that would work, and I used it, and it had a pretty decent spray pattern. It was still leaking air out down here, but the cap leaked fluid out the top. There was no way to seal this cap up. Now, this old one, the cap sealed up fine on it until after I'd used it and cleaned it probably 20 times or more with MEK, and then it finally got distorted and it was leaking. This is brand new, and I couldn't get it to seal. The threads on these are pretty coarse and pretty harsh, and it's pretty easy to get it on there cross-threaded, get it cockeyed, but I always turn it backwards and make sure everything's on there flat, and then turn it tight. And no matter what I did, how tight I got that, it would still leak fluid out of there. I tried every one of these new cups, and they all were the same way. Well, it's not too bad when you keep a surface vertical and spray on it like this, but when you got a surface that's canted just a little bit and you've got to go up over here to come down, and as soon as you tip that gun a little bit, the paint would flop off of it and get on the surface that I was trying to paint and make a mess. So while these old guns worked okay, I used them a lot. I didn't use them very much for doing a finish coat. I didn't like the way the pattern come out on it. The spray pattern, you could get it adjusted, but it seemed like no matter what I did, it always had too big of a droplets in it. I got adjusted with the fine droplets, then the paint would come out too dry. If you add more air pressure to it, then you get more volume and the paint would run. So there was always that challenge of trying to find the place between getting the paint to run and having it go on too dry. But they work great for heavy body paints, primers and stuff like that. And what I would do is I would use one of these to keep my primer and stuff in and paint it, and then use my DeVilbiss gun to put the finish coat on, and it puts on an excellent finish coat. It has a beautiful spray pattern. But that way, when I was doing smaller parts that were too big to use my small SATA jet on, then I wouldn't have to clean up between times on these guns. When I go change from one type of paint to another or one color to another, I usually take these completely apart and clean them all out. So I could dedicate one gun here to using for primers or other things, and then use my DeVilbiss gun for my finish coat. And that worked great like that. So I was pretty happy with those guns, and that's why I bought 5 of them on sale, as I figured if they're disposable guns, it costs more to clean them than what it does for the gun. For the price of the solvents, the lacquer thinner and MEK, especially up here where you have hazmat shipping on everything. But these new guns are just terrible. The old ones were okay, they're acceptable, they're usable, but these new ones are just nasty. I got 5 of them, and out of 5 of them I can't get one of them to work. Now, these come in different packages. This one here is this one. This is its box. It's item number 67181/47016. This one here is this one that I retired. It's item number 47016/67181. And I think there's a little difference on the description of them too. Yeah, one of them says it's a 20-ounce gravity feed spray gun, and the other one says it's a high-volume, low-pressure gravity spray gun, or it's just spray gun. So they're the same number, they're just reversed. This one is another one of the older ones that was on the shelf, and it's got packing grease and stuff in it. I haven't cleaned it out, but I'm saving it. And that's this one. That's item number 47016, and that one is a professional 20-ounce gravity spray gun. Now these new ones, these are the ones I just got. They're all 20-ounce, high-volume, low-pressure gravity feed spray guns, and they're all 47016s. So while these older guns, those were an acceptable gun, they would do an acceptable job. These new ones are just terrible. The fit and finish on them is terrible. They're just crap. Even at $10 a piece, they're not worth the price.